Welcome, Queen. There are times we meet guys and we think they are going to be a great fit for us. I can recall myself to meeting a number of different guys and thinking they were going to be a great fit, only to find out they were not. Have you ever found yourself dealing with the failure of a relationship, though it started off so well? If so, today's video or life lesson session is for you, as I'm going to be sharing 4 reasons why you should not feel shame, embarrassment, frustration, or even anger if your relationship failed. First off, failure teaches. Failure teaches us to slow down, to pay attention, and to engage more deeply. Oftentimes, when we meet someone, we can fail to really take the time to invest in getting to know the real and true them. In other words, we find ourselves attracted and engaging with their representative, meaning they are putting on a show, they are putting their best foot forward, so they are keeping us locked in to a version of them that they want us to believe is the real them, and it is not. But when we go through failure of a relationship, as we think about that failure, if we really take the time to process it without condemning ourselves, we can see places and spaces where we may have missed something or totally overlooked it because we were dialed in and locked in to what they wanted us to see instead of taking the time to really step back and take an objective look at who they really and truly were as a person. Because as they say, oftentimes hindsight, it's 2020. Number 2, it was toxic. So, if your relationship was manipulative, it was abusive, it was dysfunctional, guess what? That means that you were not in a relationship that was filled with love, compassion, peace, or even stability. Being in that type of relationship and environment takes a toll on you mentally, physically, spiritually. It is just not a healthy space to be in. And when we think about our lives should not be filled with drama and toxicity that keeps us in a state in space of negativity and turmoil. So, again, if your relationship failed and it was toxic, consider the lessons that you learned from experiencing that toxicity and ask yourself, do you really miss not having that in your life every day? Number 3, if your relationship failed for this reason, it's not bad. Wrong motives. So your spouse or ex-spouse at this point, or maybe even both of you entered the relationship for the wrong reasons. Maybe you were lonely. Maybe it was a rebound relationship. I did a video on why we should not engage in rebound relationships. I'll link it to this one at the top. The list can go on and on and on. Some people, they get into relationships with the wrong motives, with the wrong intentions. And sometimes they do so unintentionally. Sometimes it is willful, but not all the times. And it is not until oftentimes the relationship fails that we have the time, we have the space to really think about what was my real motive for getting in this relationship? What was my real motive for wanting to be with this particular guy? And lastly, unclear purpose. So, your spouse, ex-spouse at this point, or maybe even both of you were not clear on your purpose. And here's the thing. If you were not clear, or your ex-spouse was not clear, or like I said, both of you were not clear on your purpose, it is hard to build a life with someone else when that person is not clear. And as I've said before, I say again, It is not your job to help that person get clear. Can you assist them to get clear? Yes. But is it solely your job, your responsibility to equip and help this person get clear on what their purpose is? No. When you meet people, they should be clear on who they are and their why. So when we don't have that clarity, meaning us, the lady, or even the guy that we are with or that we end up in a relationship with, then that sets us up for failure. Why? Because at some point along the way, there is going to be conflict, there is going to be chaos because there is confusion. And where there is not alignment, there is not clarity on what each individual is bringing to the relationship and why they're bringing it to the relationship. So you can have value and your value not be a value add to this person's life because you're not a best fit for them, depending on their purpose and where God intended for them to go and what God intended for them to do. It is sort of like, I'm just going to use a weird analogy here so you can really get the picture. It's like an elephant wanting to go and live and be with a dolphin. Think about that. There's two very different and distinctive animals. An elephant and a dolphin. You're probably saying, where did you come up with that? Like I said, just a weird analogy. But you will not see an elephant and a dolphin trying to do life together. It's not going to happen. They are from two totally separate and different worlds, so to speak. Because I'm not going to overtalk that, because just looking at that example, you get what I'm saying. There are some people who are simply not a best fit for us. Again, if your relationship failed, whether this is a dating situation, you were engaged, or even if you were married, I don't really speak to married people because that's not my lane, but if you went through a divorce, if that relationship failed, again, it's not necessarily a bad thing because failure can teach us something about other people, and also about ourselves and about what we want and need in our lives and what we don't want and need in our lives. Again, if your relationship failed and that relationship was toxic, the failure of that relationship allowed you to get that toxicity out of your life. If your relationship failed, that failure had the ability to show you if you, your ex, or even both of you entered the relationship with wrong motives. And that failure also had the ability to show you whether or not you, your ex, or maybe even both of you were unclear about your purpose before you two decided to come together to be and live life as one. And I'll leave you with this thought. Often we can feel fear of being alone, anger, disappointment, or even shame when our relationships fail. Still, when we recognize and use those failures in our future, we have the power to break cycles instead of repeating them. As always, I'm Coach Sam telling you that 24 hours doesn't seem long, but in 24 hours, you can change your life. So go ahead and do something life-changing now.